problematic. From the outset, it denies similarity, i.e., the analogy on which inferential interpretation depends. Today, more than 40 years later, Vidal makes no bones about asserting the similarity of chimpanzees and human beings. And recently, other researchers working in Vidal's redoubtable wake, thankfully, have also begun to assume such similarity. The primatologist Barbara Smuts, who has studied olive baboons at Gombe, is one of these second-generation revolutionaries. Smuts asserts a consciousness much like our own in olive baboons, as well as personalities, culture, conventions, and more. And if you don't know Barbara Smuts' work, I recommend it to you because I really think she's at the forefront of this, hopefully, of this paradigm shift. And Smuts has also been so bold as to begin to question and to change the rules for inferring animal consciousness and intelligence, even as she helpfully points out that scientists cannot even agree on what consciousness is, let alone how to study it. Consciousness is a resistant object of study, to say the least. Smuts summarizes her perception of the consciousness of an individual baboon, or a dog, she also writes about dogs, as knowing that someone is home when she looks into the primate's eyes. Just as when I look at any of you or you look at any of me, we can see consciousness without being able, or indeed without needing, to prove it. It is self-evident. There are others like Smuts, and although they are still a minority in an ocean of stubborn resistance to the facts, this minority is growing. Their work, I think, in some ways harkens back to older and other ways of knowing that preceded the birth of the scientific method in the Renaissance. First, in the face of the evidence, these researchers can adopt an assumption of similarity rather than dissimilarity. These scientists are arguably not threatened by the crisis of distinction that blurs the boundary line between Homo sapiens and the species with which we share this planet. In this new group of researchers share something in common with, among others, Salish-speaking Indians from the Northwest, where I live. Traditional Northwest peoples assume similarity and even interchangeability between the human and animal forms and the human and animal mind. They took the essential similarity between humans and the animals around them to be self-evident. So to conclude, I think we may be in the midst of a paradigm shift, witness to it as the ground shifts under our feet, so to speak. To return to Kool, eventually, Kool tells us, if enough anomalies mount up, because if you remember, science has to pay attention to objective reality, ultimately. If enough anomalies mount up, these violations of the dominant paradigm become impossible to ignore. When this happens, a new paradigm may begin to emerge in a revolutionary process and after a period of chaos and contention. And then, Kool writes, and this is a quote, led by a new paradigm, scientists adopt new instruments and look in new places. Even more important, during revolutions, scientists see new and different things when looking with familiar instruments in places they have looked before. It is rather as if the professional community had been suddenly transported to another planet where familiar objects are seen in a different light and are joined by unfamiliar ones as well. The long legacy of Western science, the instrument which has justified so much exploitation of non-human animals, as well as of non-normative, non-Western humans, and the multiplicity of life forms and life systems, is currently being challenged as never before. I think this conference is evidence of that. It may well be the paradigm shift is underway. Let us hope that a new way of thinking about and seeing other species and our relation to them is coming. If it is, let us hope that the new planet we finally see is our own.